Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic week. I am here with author Kristen Pratt, who is also the curriculum development editor, who is also my wife and the mother of my children. I met her at the door. She walked in the building for meetings today. I gave her a sweet kiss and told her, would you ever be on Facebook Live with me? She questioned my motives.
Yeah, he doesn't usually meet me at the door.
I was still excited to see you.
Yes.
Hey, so language lessons level 4 is in the final stages. There's a copy on the boardroom table. Everybody's going through and doing a proof run on it. This thing is no joke. It's how many pages?
I don't know the final page count.
It's huge. Because there's a lot of extras in it. It's not, the courses aren't overwhelming, but you add a lot to the back of the course.
I do. For those students that need the extra practice or just want to play fun games and learn while they're doing it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're joining us, be sure to comment, because I'm having fun. Every time we do a video, I'm having fun going in somebody's account and adding 2,500 reward points. That's $25 of Master Books purchasing power. So be sure to comment on that. That was almost animated. Okay.
Oh, you sound like a TV guy.
Yes. Well, I'm getting more animated all the time. This is a fun group to talk with. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about language lessons for a living education. Of course, you've been working with Master Books since 2012, helping develop the format of lesson plans and all of that. This is a culmination of a lot of things.
It is. It's a culmination of years worth of frustration with grammar courses and writing courses that really write to either somebody who completely loves grammar and has no idea how someone doesn't love grammar.
Like me.
And to the kids who just love to write. And so that's what this comes out of. It's been years of frustration of teaching my kids who vary in ability, vary in interest, and, tend to be more of the average student who really doesn't want to go into great depth of, they don't want to spend 2 hours of their school day studying the intricacies of grammar.
Right.
They need to understand grammar. Don't get me wrong. And I want the students to understand grammar, but taking a more gentle approach to it.
Okay, so a little bit of a backstory. If you don't know, Kristen and I work for Master Books. We don't own Master Books. We owned a business in the beginning of kind of the homeschool journey. We had a business called Pennywise Learning that we sold to Christian book distributors in 2010. And during that time, we had exposure to a lot of different curriculums. We had graduated from an ACE School of Tomorrow school. We've homeschooled using almost all of the major curriculums. If you're evangelical Christian, we're conservative evangelical Christian curriculums we've used. So the BJUs, Abeka, Switched on Schoolhouse, Horizons, all of the major curriculums and a lot of the minor curriculums. And in our business, we also sold these curriculums. And so we had a lot of exposure. We had to know how to do customer service. We knew all of what the scope and sequence were, all of what made parents love it, and also what made them hate it. And when we came to Master Books, it was a divine appointment. The Lord opened up an opportunity at a homeschool convention. Kristen came on and started doing consulting. And then I was in full-time ministry, and the Lord began to show us that he was going to prepare us for a move. And exactly in the time that he said he was going to, Master Books, Tim asked if we would come on board full-time, and we moved our family here to Arkansas. And it is, for me, it's the dream job of a lifetime. We get to do exactly what we do, which is supporting this community and working at developing curriculum. But why I say all that is because over 20 years of our own homeschooling, working with other families,
plus leading
working with other curriculums,
local support groups, homeschool support groups, working with a lot of those families as well.
We've mentored literally through the business that we had and in ministry and whatnot. We've mentored thousands of families in homeschooling. And our passion is to see families succeed. So why I say all that is because when you look at a product like Language Lessons for a Living Education, or even the Master Books method, it's really a culmination of taking everything we saw that works. ACE, what we loved about ACE was setting a daily goal, having a daily goal, students working independently, being responsible for their learning. And so that element was brought into it. Other things that we saw in courses that that parents loved, we've pulled in from that, the hands-on Charlotte Mason method and application and a lot of that and that. So language.
Plus there's elements that they just came, like the co-reading and some of those things come from just how I homeschool with my children, things that just organically work in a homeschool environment. It might not work in a classroom, which is why we don't find any of it in any classroom curriculum or curriculum that's modeled after the classroom model. Because that's what happens, is a lot of our homeschool curriculum out there was designed for a classroom setting.
Right.
And other curriculum that was written for homeschoolers still models after the classroom model. And so that's something that I try to break away from, is to actually model it after what works in a homeschool setting. And so I brought those components in, which include the co-reading, memorizing the scripture with your student, allowing the student to talk through their ideas before they actually put them to paper. All of those are not found in any other curriculum. They're simply there because I've found that works in a homeschool setting.
So when an author begins writing, there's an assumption of who that customer is. They're like, there's an idea of who's going to open the book. I think the person in your authoring, this is a tool.
Yes.
And you trust the parent educator
right
to use it as a tool.
Sorry, I've got a hair on my causing me grief.
To use it as a tool for their homeschool. If something works, use it. If it doesn't work, don't use it.
Absolutely. And I tailor actually the language lessons to meet the needs of my own kids. Now, I only have one that's young enough right now to be in it. And the way I use it with him is entirely different than I would have used it with his older brother. So he already knows how to spell all the words that's in there. He knows how to spell all the words that are probably in an 8th grade curriculum, simply because spelling comes natural to him. He's a very strong reader, so he does most of the reading on his own, and then I ask him the questions. So we don't do the reading necessarily together. Now, his older brother, if he had been in this, which I think it would have been really good for him to be in it, he would have had to do all of it. For example, the dictionary. My youngest, I don't have him do the dictionary. The only thing that I have him do the basic spelling page. That's it. And that's just so that he's working with words. He's working on handwriting. He's building up that writing stamina. So it's not for the spelling component with him. It's just, it gives him that little extra practice. Now, my other son, definitely, I would have had him doing the dictionary because he struggles not only with spelling, but with vocabulary. And so he asks, all day long.
I did a letter writing exercise with him last night. Oh, my goodness. Every other word, he was asking me how to spell it. And then there had to be a discussion. What is the meaning of that word?
Yes.
And did I use it correctly?
I don't discourage that. I encourage that because that's how he's actually learned how to spell.
Is that how I was supposed to handle that?
No. However, I didn't see you handle it, but I can just imagine. So
even his younger brother was like, can't you spell any of these words on your own?
Well, that's because he can.
But he could. He did spell them.
Well, there are times where I make him.
He just was second guessing everything.
Yeah, I ask him sometimes, how do you think it's spelled?
So change my name. I'm no longer Dad. I'm now Dictionary. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're watching, be sure to comment, okay? Let us know you're watching. If you're using Language Lessons, let us know that you're using it, because I'm looking forward to putting 2,500 reward points into somebody's account. We'll choose them either Well, most likely tomorrow morning I'll choose somebody and drop 2,500 reward points into their account.
So, you bring up a really good point, is sometimes we look at curriculum and we want the curriculum to do everything, but that's impossible, because unless you want to go and write a curriculum every single subject every year for each one of your students, you're never going to have a perfect fit.
It'd have to be so custom to that student.
Right. And that's just impossible to do. So your job our job as the homeschool teacher is to find the best tools for the job that we can find, and then use those tools in a way that fits and meets the needs of our students. And so that's what I do with a curriculum that I wrote. I actually adapt it to meet the needs of my particular student.
Now, so as homeschoolers, we've always been very eclectic.
Yes.
If a computerized program worked in a season for one student, we would use that. If more of a classical method worked for a student, we would use that. If the Charlotte Mason method worked best for a student, we would use that.
Right. With the underlying importance of biblical truth.
Absolutely. So what I noticed as you've been writing this as a tool, this in many ways, it's almost like a toolbox, because there are many, especially in language, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there's a lot of different methods and approaches. And you could go very hard into one camp, and this is the way we do this. Teaching phonics, shoot me now, right? Because who cares?
You can't even say the vowel sounds properly.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't have you teach phonics for
Exactly.
a reason. He actually has tried to help teach phonics at times. And
my daughter has a Southern draw before we became Southerners, because the way I talk.
Yes.
Okay. So there's all these different methods and all these different approaches. And some people will camp in that and they're willing to die on that hill. I don't feel that this is that. I feel that as you've gone through the different methods and you looked at different approaches, you've chosen the one that made the most common sense to the audience that we serve, that would have served well and does serve well, but it's not necessarily there aren't necessarily hills on this. It's more eclectic in its approach too.
Yeah, I would say it's a natural approach. Okay. I try to take the way my children and other children that I've had experience with, how they naturally learn. And when it comes to language arts, language is complicated when you start dissecting it. So a kid learns how to talk by mimicking, and then they learn how and when to apply those things. But when it comes to actually writing those things down and dissecting it, English is very complex. Whether you're talking spelling is, wow, spelling is really complicated in the English language. But when it comes to learning grammar and learning how to write, it can be overwhelming to a student. And so the methods that I put into this really teach to the natural learning process that I have found, which basically is you want to work with language in one way or another. Let them talk. I think that's a big component that's missing in the programs that are written for a classroom, because obviously you can't have 20, 30 kids, even 15 in a class and let them talk about their assignment before they actually write it down.
That's a good point.
And that's really important to me, that a student has a chance to first think about it, then talk about it, and then put it to paper.
So the application is a very important part of it.
Yes. And then as they're doing that, a couple days a week, they're looking at what a noun is, what a verb is, where your periods go, where your commas go. And then the point of that is to actually help the writing process, to bring that back or circle back around and apply that into their writing, what they've learned. And so rather than it being a sterile approach where, okay, we're going to learn all about nouns and verbs, and we just keep that separated from the writing, I've tried to merge that together. And so you'll notice there's a lot of write a sentence using whatever concept it is that we just learned about, because there's nothing better than to actually apply what you've learned to actual writing than just have it this sterile, separate concept.
Yeah. So last night, so Kristen's been writing. She's doing this at an accelerated. If a lot of 500-page or 400 and some page textbooks you would release one a year. If that was a standard, we released the 2, 3, and 4 were the product of 2018.
I have written 3 levels in a year's time, and I will be writing 3 levels
this year
as well.
So I get to see her in the morning when I snag her at the door when she's coming in for a meeting, and I get to see her for a few minutes before I fall asleep at night. And she's been writing nonstop.
Right.
So kids are doing good. The house staying together. I don't know if you know, but we had a grandbaby born recently.
Yes, I have spent time with my grandbaby. I do take time away.
She does. But she's been working hard at it. And so 4 is in the process. It should be available. The digital download, I would expect previews to be available within 2 weeks, and the digital download will be available within about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then usually to printer, you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks, depending on where the printers are and the time of year and that type of thing.
Well, once it goes to printer, though, pretty quickly we usually get the digital uploaded and start taking the pre-orders.
Yeah.
And I do apologize that this one is running so behind schedule. That was completely on my shoulders. I got very, very, very sick with a couple of different back-to-back things for 3 weeks, fevered, nearly unconscious.
The writer's plague.
Writer's plague, is that what it was? For
so.
3 weeks, I was really very, very ill. And then we took 2 weeks, one to go visit, one to celebrate our granddaughter's first birthday, and then another one to meet up with a really special family event that I couldn't miss. So that delayed it.
So 4 is about ready to come out. 5, you've written through the first quarter and are into the second quarter. So that's going to come much quicker. And then redoing the elementary Bible and English grammar and the basic language skills are on the site for this year.
The Bible and grammar will still probably stay available for a while, but we will update we'll be doing a level 6 as well, but they'll be close in.
Okay.
We'll have the language lessons format and feel, but some of the content will remain the same.
So we're going to release the basic 4 package, which is it's in the catalog. I talked about it last week. It's on the website. Will be on the website. We're working on that today and this week, where for say grades 3, it's math, language, social studies or history, and science. So those are the basic 4, and you'll be able to add electives. Right now we have levels 2, 3, and 4 in those packages. Once 5 is out, right, the way we're set up now, if you're in grade 5, we put you into writing strands, would be the language arts. What you're planned to do is, I believe, was to write language lessons 5 and 6 so that a student could move right from 6 into the writing strands intermediate.
Intermediate 1, yes. That is how I'm going to do that.
She's got it going on. So that would be the easiest transition.
Right. If they wanted to start language lessons or writing strands at level 5, they could start at beginning 1.
Right.
But if they wanted to wait and start, then I would go from language lessons 6 into advanced 1.
Into the advanced.
Intermediate. I'm sorry, my mistake. Yeah, intermediate 1.
Yeah, so that there will be a really good progression there, and then the creative side of the writing, because you're doing a lot of what the writing strands beginner has with pick a sentence, choose your words carefully, think about what the implications of that word are.
Yeah, we're developing writing skills.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So before we talk specifically about this, because I've already taken 20 minutes, be sure to comment for a chance to win 2,500 reward points that will be automatically put into your account.
And I appreciate Laura Wiersma being concerned about me working too hard. But we are planning on taking an awesome vacation to the Grand Canyon for our anniversary. So,
Yes.
and
So
we might get to meet up with Laura.
yeah,
I
that'd be
think she
fun.
lives over there
Do you?
and knows a special way into the Grand Canyon. I haven't been able to follow up with her on it, but
That'd be fun. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I take good care of her. She gets coffee and coffee and coffee. We have an IV actually, drip hooked up.
I would have worn a long sleeve shirt if I had realized I was going to be doing the
it's
live
not really,
today.
It's not really.
No,
an
I
IV
just
drip.
had a chunk taken out, but it was all good. It wasn't anything serious. So
Good. All right. So talk to us a little bit about level 4. The cover is awesome, masculine, light green.
we've
one
tried
with
to mix up
glasses.
the covers a little bit to appeal to both boys and girls.
Yes.
So so sometimes it's a girl and sometimes it's a boy on the cover. So there's a couple of changes that you're going to notice in going into level 4. One of the changes is that we've taken and we don't have the dotted lines anymore. So we just have the regular lines. We still provide the lines to help keep the students' work straight and neat, but it's not in the dotted line format anymore because they're getting older. We have gone through one of the issues that we've had in the past with language lessons is not having quite enough room for them on that 4th day to write out the scripture. So let me show you on this one. We're going to be going back and adjusting the other language lessons and fitting more lines in there. But you can see there's four lines on there. We're still working in the favorite Bible stories from the Bible through this. And so we're going chronologically. It starts at level 3 and we work our way through level 5 through this. And so we're continuing to do that. We also have all of the fun games in the back. It's all been tailored to the content that's in here.
Okay.
I don't just bring those forward every year. We evaluate them, what things would be helpful to bring forward and what things should not. We also have, and they're done, they're going to be available as a download. All of the spelling words will be available with the little boxes around them. So if that's something that your kid really benefits from, you can download a worksheet for all of the spelling lessons where they can fill in the shape boxes.
Okay.
And so prior I had only sprinkled those in. Now they're not in the spelling lesson, but they're available as a free download.
Okay.
For all of the spelling lessons. Eventually I want to put together a teaching companion like the what's the other one? The other language, writing strands.
Yes.
And we will probably put all of those into that teaching companion. Boy, I have to think back because this is I'm already knee deep in level 5. I did start to pull in some things, analogies and some upper level thinking skills at this level.
It's challenged my logic this morning as we speak.
And then, but it's still, I mean, we still cover the grammar, the punctuation, the writing, the picture study. All those elements are still in there, but I continue to bump up the level, bump up the expectations just a little bit. I kind of look at it like expanding a balloon. You know, you the first time you blow into it, sometimes it's real hard and stiff and you can't get much air in. And then if you let it down and then you blow it up again, the next time you can get a little more air and you're going to stretch it just a little farther. And so every level just stretches that balloon just a little bigger and a little bigger. So
my son took karate years ago. And at the beginning, they teach you the basics. They teach you how to stand. They teach you the basic kicks, right? Snap kick, roundhouse, side kick, different kicks, different punches. That created the foundation. And they wanted to make sure that that foundation, that every time you got into a fighting stance, that you were always, your shoulders were right, your feet were right, and that was very natural. And then they built on that. And so the complexity always went back to those basics. Your stance was right, the basic kicks. There would just be different variations. I see a lot of times questions will come up from a mom who's maybe in second grade or third grade, and the child they're just not grasping verbs completely. But it isn't one of those things where it's really they have to master verbs like they would in math.
And that is something that, I do want to address. I'm glad you brought that up. When it comes to language is something that requires a lot of review, just building and coming back around. And okay, so we learn about the basics of nouns, and then we add in different things about nouns. Okay, nouns can be plural, and then we have irregular plural nouns. And so little by little, you're building on what they've learned about nouns. And then you learn about prepositions and prepositional phrases and the nouns that are in them, and then direct objects eventually. And so you're taking one simple concept of nouns and you're building on that. But before we start a lesson that's going to expand their knowledge of nouns, I remind them what a noun is, because my kids forget. I still have 5th and 6th graders, and it doesn't matter what curriculum they've used. What's a verb? What's an adjective? They still ask those questions when they face them again. And so to remind them without it being something they're going to get wrong on a test, but just to say, okay, remember a noun, it names a person, place, or thing. Remember a proper noun, this is what a proper noun is. Now we have set the stage, we can launch from that today. And so that's built into this program. And, like 5th grade right now, we're getting into a little bit more complicated grammar. And whenever there's new grammar concepts introduced, I would never expect a student to master it. And even the old grammar that they've learned, they may need reminded of it. And so mastery is not the expectation here.
Right.
Learning is the expectation. Learning and applying. I don't care if they can, from verbatim at any given moment, give me the definition of a noun. But I do want them to know how to use a noun in their writing.
Right.
I want them to know how to describe a noun in their writing so that they can communicate effectively.
Right. Okay. Is diagramming, do you cover diagramming?
No.
Okay.
I've tried to, people. I've tried. I just can't make myself do it. There's lots of understanding how language fits together. There's lots of understanding of, this is what a preposition looks like. Here's what it, where it's found. There's lots of that sort of thing. This is what a noun is. This is what a noun does. And labeling, there's some labeling in there.
And it's not, we have a son who loved diagramming.
Yes.
So it's not to knock diagramming because that's application. But what you said, it's a natural way to learn language.
Right.
That this uses a lot of application and just it fits well with the writing strands type method.
Right.
As opposed to that traditional style of diagramming and trying to understand. So that's a method. It's not necessarily the key or the only way to teach language.
Right. And for those who love diagramming, maybe at some point we'll come out with some things that address diagramming. Probably not so much in the younger grades, but maybe at the 7th and 8th grade level. will do or in high school. But it felt I couldn't do it justice to make it understandable to a child that I felt comfortable with it. So I haven't added any yet.
Well, and when you have a very conversational, practical type curriculum, to all of a sudden go to a formal style of let's just hit that, I think would be difficult. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it's also why if the moderators come in and they try to guide people on placement, you're not going to see a student needs to know what a noun, a verb, a this, a that is before they start this program. It's more, where are they in their writing abilities?
Right.
Are they able to write out a paragraph that it's mostly spelled right? It mostly has, the functions that need to be, start with the capital letter, end with the period, those sorts of things. And does it somehow have some continuity to it? And so that's what we're looking at each level, where a student should be at with their actual writing, because we want them to learn all about these grammar components and punctuation and all of that. But it's with the goal of not just learning them for learning's sake, but how to apply them.
Right.
And they're going to review all those nuts and bolts as they go along every year.
Learning language to be a better communicator.
Yes.
As opposed to learning language to learn language.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, we believe this 100%. One, we don't believe every curriculum fits every student. And this curriculum fits really well. Like we said, it's a culmination of a lot of things that we've seen work over the years, the success we've taken from the methodologies and ideologies of different curriculums and formats. If you come across any Masterbooks curriculum that just doesn't suit your student, and one student may love it and the other may not. I mean, it's so varied. We've seen it over the years where one kid will flourish in a curriculum and you can't wait for the next kid to come in and they completely shut down. We bless you and encourage you to find solutions that work for your family. When our solutions work for your family and you have a homeschool win and you know it, then that's what we want. We want the homeschool wins. We don't want to convince people to use our products and curriculum who aren't going to be blessed by it. And we do believe that we've created product that masses are going to be blessed by, but we also want to bless you to be able to say, this just isn't working. And to that we say, we understand.
Right. The only caveat that I would give is to make sure whatever you are using has a biblical foundation, because it does matter.
It comes through in everything. A language course is you're constantly rewriting sentences, copy work, all of these things. There is no benign topic. We live, eat, and breathe either
all things for God's glory.
Yes, or we don't. And to exclude that from areas is like segmenting parts of our life, which can be a very dangerous precedent.
Hi, Vicki. My friend Vicki Sweda just joined. Good morning, Vicki. We miss you guys.
Good. Okay. So preview should be up within the next 2 to 3 weeks, right? You do a lot of poetry in it. There's some rhyming.
I'm hoping by the end of next week. In fact, Elijah is in tears because I'm waiting for this. I am eager to have this in print and ready. Elijah yesterday was in tears. Is Language Lessons 4 done yet?
Is he moving there?
That he's supposed to be. I'm one of the moms who planned for it to be done at the end of the year, and it wasn't. And now I'm scrambling to fill in until we can get started on level 4. So I'm with you, moms, and I give a heartfelt apology. I seriously, we all thought we would have it done, but my illness for 3 weeks of writing taken away. And then it's just complicated, because then you don't just, the schedule here, you don't just jump back in, it causes delays for everybody.
Well, some of you that like diagramming, I'll tell you, here's an exercise we could do. If you took Language Lessons for Living Education and there were some sentence and you wanted to create some diagramming puzzles to upload to the group that families who wanted to do diagramming exercises could, we'd be happy to do that, because I think when you look at diagramming as a way to solve a puzzle and break it out, and if that's the way you think, we'd love to include that. And if it's something that seems like people really enjoy, it might even be included at a later time, because we've done that in the past too. But we can upload it into the files. Right. We can upload them as supplements for sure.
Or it could go into the teaching companion when I'm doing the teaching companion.
Right.
Because that's probably where the word shapes are going to go.
Yeah.
Because we found out that there's a certain segment that just loves those. And so we will, make those available now.
So if you wanted to create a diagramming puzzle book, so we're all for that. Mm-hmm. Some of our best ideas have come out of this group. We get a lot of good feedback, and because we've created a curriculum that was based on kind of what meets the needs of homeschoolers. Homeschooling in the real world is what we say, because we understand that sometimes babies are born and there's different seasons of life. It's valuable to see when samples are submitted. It doesn't always work for every family, but it is.
Well, here's just, this is me as a homeschool mom. Here's a frustration that I have is you get a curriculum and you think that your year is going to look a certain way. You're going to have lots of time to do all those added things that are, just very time consuming, lots of projects, lots of experiments, lots of whatever. And it's built into that curriculum. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly life changes and your year was not as you anticipated it was going to go. And you find out that you can't do half of what's in that book because your lifestyle that year didn't lend itself to it. Right. And so what we've tried to do is we've tried to create curriculum that your kid's going to get a solid education if they just do the main stuff that's in it. Mm-hmm. But then we do try to give a lot of extra material. Number one, if you have time to do it and want to do it. And number two, if a student is requiring more, without making every student taking the course do this type of problem 12 times.
Right.
And so that's something that is really helpful to me as a homeschool mom, be able to use this tool to apply it in a way that works in my home with my kids in my circumstances.
Right.
So we've tried to build in that flexibility.
Yeah. If you've been homeschooling for a while, we love when you put up a testimony that says, my kids are learning more under this approach. And the reason, the less is more. Talked about it a lot in the past, but the 80-20 rule, 80% of our effectiveness comes from the 28% of the things that we do, and really focusing on what are the 20% of the things that we can do to be more effective rather than focusing on a lot of things that just aren't productive. And in the curriculum, a lot of what we do with the less is more is we really try to keep the kid inspired and engaged, make it manageable for the parent, make it so that the kid gets excited about learning. And if you see your kid, like a spark goes off, that all of a sudden they just came alive about a topic and they want more information. They want to read other books. They want to search the web, whatever that happens. That's where the learning happens, right? So we're like fire starters. We like the sparks going that engages a student. So all of a sudden they get excited. And you'll notice in your homeschool too, when you're not constantly bogged down by my kid is shutting down, they're fighting me every day, they are begging you to do school. Like we love these testimonials of Saturday morning. They woke up and they wanted to do school because it was fun. When that happens and you begin to relax as a parent, all of a sudden the whole climate of the home begins to change and learning becomes fun. It becomes a family adventure.
And that's actually the key to it sticking and then actually learning and retaining.
Yes.
Yeah. Versus learning it for a test. It's here today, gone tomorrow.
And we know from experience, our oldest shut down in first grade, and you fight that for the next 12 years, trying to get her or them to get engaged again and getting excited about learning.
Right.
And it's a struggle. And
let me also, this is a good point to just stop and talk a little bit about spelling because it's kind of related. So you have spelling. Spelling is just one of those subjects. I hesitated even putting it into the curriculum because I knew it's virtually impossible to please the masses when it comes to spelling. And that's because kids are all over. They're I believe, I cannot back this up, but I believe they're born good spellers or struggling with spelling. It's just they're born that way.
Based on what we see.
Yes, because I've used about every spelling program out there for my struggling spellers. And thank goodness there's spell check. So how I approach this is I didn't just, okay, what should a kid be learning to spell, what approach, blah, blah, blah. It's also what else is going on in a kid's educational career, so to speak, at that level. So let's just talk a little bit about second grade. So second grade, they are still learning brand new key concepts. Basically, K through 3, they've got so much going at them that they're learning that's brand new. So you look at their reading. I mean, that's huge, just learning to read. You look at their math. That's like, you know, all new concepts, adding, subtracting, and then putting it in the proper formats and columns and all of that. They're learning in their English. They're actually, learning how to form letters properly, starting with a capital letter, ending with a period. Some people start cursive in those years. There's just a lot of new material coming at them. And so for the kids who are good at spelling, yay, we don't have to really do a whole lot because they're just going to naturally learn harder and harder words as they have exposure to reading and writing.
Right.
For the kids that struggle in spelling, they're going to struggle. And so why make that process even harder when they're already having to learn so much in these grades? And so for that reason, I didn't go with the hardest spelling words out there. I took a more gentle approach. And so like for our son, it's way too gentle. He already knows, like I said, he probably can spell words in 8th grade and he knows the meaning of them, like his vocabulary.
Brother, who's 2 grades ahead,
right,
would not. He would still. He
would need this gentle approach. And so I wrote the spelling to the average and the struggling student, not to the sparklers, as Laura likes to call them here, the sparklers. And so my son is a sparkler, my youngest son, when it comes to this. I mean, he has had a grasp of language since he could talk that blows our mind.
Right.
The way he could apply language was just incredible, way beyond his years from the get-go. And so I didn't write this to him. I wrote this to the average or the struggling student when it comes to spelling, because when I'm looking at each component, I'm looking at what else are they also learning across the board,
right, in
math, in science, in all these other things. What are they doing? And we don't want the brain shutting down because it's on overload, because when that happens, they can't learn.
In elementary, especially, students that are struggling with math facts or students that are struggling with memorization, that being able to spell and that memorization, multiple digit, all that type of stuff as well. There's like so much for the brain to kind of catch up to the learning for some kids.
Yes.
And those become big friction points for moms. And the idea is kind of keep everybody moving forward.
Right.
And we've seen it time and time again. The kids that need to catch up.
Right.
But rather than setting the bar way up here and saying we have the best spelling curriculum because we choose the hardest words.
It's the most rigorous out there.
Yeah.
I personally feel that a kid learns more by growing into it instead of overwhelming them. And so we want them to grow. We want them to progress. They all have to end up at the same point at the end of 12 years.
Right.
But we can make the process easier to get through and keep the child's creativity and eagerness to learn, which actually creates an environment where they can learn, versus throwing too hard, too fast actually causes shutdown. And so by taking a little gentler starting, we are actually going to be able to tackle more as they get older than if we kind of stunt the growth by too much, too fast.
So the child, the standard words, the words that are chosen would be kind of a standards, they would meet standards.
Right.
So it's not that it's been dumbed down by any means. It's completely on standard, but it's not choosing a rigorous, approach that allows students that need that to be confident in that. A student who's above, like Eli, he would be bored anyways with almost any program at his grade level because of his level of spelling.
Any kind of spelling or vocabulary is
right.
He just knows it.
And then there's different methodologies as well around spelling courses.
Right.
Look at any CBD catalog. You're going to see everybody who has the best spelling program.
Well, I can tell you when it comes to spelling, there is no one surefire approach because I've looked at all of them. I've not only looked at all of them as I have prepared to make sure I'm covering all my bases when it comes to the curriculum writing, but I have looked at mass numbers of them for my own kids that struggle to spell. And I can tell you there is no one best way. And so when it comes to spelling, it's just so individual. And so you really have to meet the needs of your student, which is why I made it flexible. It's why I gave a whole list of things that you could try to do with your kid to reinforce spelling. It's why there's spelling games. It's why there's a variety of activities. And if the dictionary isn't working for you, don't do it. Or if it would work better if you did the dictionary in a different way, change it.
Right. And it's easy enough. If you go online and type 4th grade spelling list, you can come up with endless spelling lists.
So endless spelling lists.
So it would be easy for somebody to create additional spelling work.
Right. You won't find my spelling lists.
Right.
I mean, I hand picked the approach. This is my approach. This doesn't model anybody else's approach.
Good. Okay.
Which is to me a natural approach is what I would call it.
All right. Well, hopefully we did it justice. We kind of addressed some of the things that we see now that it's been available for 6 months or so and families are using it, and some of the feedback we get a lot of fantastic feedback. We love seeing the stories and the pictures and the sentences. Student creativity is fantastic. And I think anytime you use a method like math lessons for a loving education, I like that. Yeah. Math lessons for a loving education. Golly.
Man, that was good marketing.
That made me feel good. That was a little slip, but maybe just makes me feel good.
Yeah, I like that.
Language lessons for a loving education.
Yeah, we might have to change that now. I don't know if Angela would be up for that, but man, I think I could. I don't mind changing the title. That was good. It really is.
Yeah. Well, it's an outside of the box approach, and it's a different approach. And for some families, it resonates and it works fantastic, and for others, it doesn't. And I feel our heart behind the homeschooling, what we love to do is support homeschool families. And there are families that love rigorous academia and a lot of just their level 10 on
as
on
fast
the scale.
as hard as whatever as you can. And I'm not about dumbing anything down at all. In fact, I have pretty high expectations sometimes for my kids. School comes easy. For me, I love learning. It's something that, is important to me. Education is very important to me. But I think that there's effective ways that you can use to take a more gentler approach, but still get to the same place.
Right.
And so for the families that want to do hit hard, hit heavy, in those lower grades, they can do that, and that's okay.
But over the years, we've seen families struggling,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to send their kids back to school. And it wasn't that was the decision that they really wanted. It was because they were so overwhelmed and so defeated. And so many
Right.
times it was the curriculum that was it was supposed to be the best, or the alpha mom in the neighborhood said, this is what you need to use if you're going to homeschool. And so they started it, and it didn't fit their family. And our heart is really for that family to try to provide a solution that for the mom who
Mm-hmm.
needs, she doesn't necessarily need to sit at the table with her kids for 8 hours a day, and she needs to have something that's practical, and it builds the faith. It teaches what needs to be taught. It works harder, smarter, not harder. And
Yeah,
really does that.
and that really comes back to so much of the curriculum that we've worked with was designed for a classroom.
Where you have one teacher teaching one subject,
Mm-hmm.
1 hour a day for the whole year, right?
Lots of kids.
So she teaches for a few moments.
Yep.
Then the class does seat work in order to keep them busy while she's helping some of the struggling learners.
Right, or correcting grading papers or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's something that it's a really good solution in a classroom. But if you try to, even if you are determined this classroom approach curriculum is great for you, chances are you're going to need to adapt it. And that's what I always did. I took what we had and tried to adapt it to meet the needs. Well, I shouldn't say always. I didn't start off that way. Mm-hmm. I started off very, very regimented, probably more regimented than most. But it didn't take me long to realize it was killing the love of education for my kids. And it wasn't tailored to my family dynamics or my kids' dynamics. And so I began experimenting and changing different things. I would go to homeschool conventions I'd have a list of trouble spots that I was trying to find solutions for, because no matter how much I tried twisting a curriculum, mm-hmm. it just wasn't working. And so just keeping that in mind is that, a lot of those curriculums were just not made specifically for the homeschooling family. Mm-hmm. And so you have to do a lot more adjusting with those curriculums.
To fit it into the homeschool.
Right. And so we really tried to remove those things that were specific to classrooms in our curriculum across the board, and make it just so much more workable for the homeschool family. But still, you have to adjust it because you're the teacher.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the topic is. No one can make a perfect solution for everybody. It doesn't matter the subject. You just can't, because that's not how God designed us.
Right.
And all curriculum has to be looked at as a tool. Now, written as it is, every I dotted, every T crossed, doing it exactly as it's written, you can do that too.
And it follows the standard scope and sequence. So of a curriculum.
It's not core. It's not based on, we don't even look at what they're doing for.
No, but if you were looking at, say, BJU or one of those courses.
Right. It covers what you're supposed to. Well,
traditional curriculum.
Yeah, it's traditional in a second grader generally is going to talk about nouns, verbs. Mm-hmm. It's very non-traditional in how those things are applied.
Right. By design.
Right.
So parenting essentially is discipleship. We're training our students all the time. We teach them to walk, to tie their shoes. We teach them how to have manners. We teach them how to use the potty. We're constantly discipling and training our children. School should be no different. School is an extension. It's discipleship and training and preparing them for life. If your life is good outside of school, I would challenge you to examine your school and to look at that does the school, is it just an extension of family parenting discipleship? Because God chose you as your student's teacher, trainer, discipler, knowing that you are the one best equipped to train, teach, and disciple your student. And so many times curriculum forces a parent to not be to be something different than a parent discipler. And this program, Math Lessons for a Living Education, a lot of the programs that we're working on are meant to help come alongside the parent, give you the tools to help that be a natural extension, so that the process of discipleship and training becomes very much like learning to walk. It's something we celebrate, we learn, we trial and error, that type of thing. So,
and for those that really like the Foundation Phonics approach, our daughter Carrie is working tirelessly now on a new science.
Yes.
Which will have, again, the same very doable, the same kind of approach.
Right.
But applied to science.
With a desire to inspire the joy and understanding scientific method, and just, yeah, we're excited
In
about
fact, her kids are constantly on her to give them new lessons because they're loving it.
Yeah.
They're the little test pilots on it, and they're eager. They're loving it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've gone on a long time, and we're excited. Be on the lookout. You'll be able to pre-order this. It probably will go up for pre-order this week, and then
next week. It might be into next week.
Pre-order this week.
Pre-order. Okay.
Yeah. The digital downloads will probably be available next week, is what I'm thinking, if not 2 weeks from now. And then this will be available, but you should be able to order this by the end of the week as a pre-order. And remember, if you place an order for it, you're going to need 101 favorite stories. And if you're watching and you haven't, be sure to let us know that you are watching, that you are extremely blessed and fortunate to participate in this Facebook Live. And we're choosing to drop, somebody will choose to drop 2,500 reward points. Reward points are exciting. We have so many families that benefit from reward points and are able to use them. Mm-hmm. And we were excited when we migrated to the new site. We were concerned that we were going to be able to bring everything over and have it work. And it did. It worked perfect. And so this is an exciting thing that we're able to do. So, okay. God bless you guys. Pray you have a blessed day. On Thursday, we're going to be talking about social skills, emotional health. I think emotional health is an important aspect. I don't know that I've always, as a father, understood the importance of teaching my children how to have emotional health. The older I get and the more students I have, the more I realize what an important part of discipling and training them is. So I'd encourage you to join me on Thursday. I'd love to have you as part of that discussion. God bless you. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. And we will talk to you on Thursday.